Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for another video. So in this week's video, I want to tackle guilt and shame. And I think this is a great topic. It's something that someone brought to my attention recently, and I really wanted to make this video because we've all felt these feelings, these emotions. We've all felt guilt and we've all felt shame. And I think understanding the two of them will help you to gain some clarity on basically what the difference is between them and how to really overcome and heal those two things. Because I do think that especially shame, and we'll get into that, it's something that can stay with you for a lifetime and you never really heal it. And in order to create, a great life and to be happy, you have to heal those inner parts of ourselves that are carrying those wounds. And shame is definitely a wound that's within a lot of people. Now, before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. Don't forget to also click on the notification bell. That bell will inform you every time I do upload a new video, so you will never miss out on a new video or a new topic. So let's get right into this week's video. So as we're growing up, we have a set of beliefs. We are programmed with a set of beliefs and a set of rules as to how life is supposed to go. So we learn right from wrong. We learn what is something that's hurtful to say or do to someone versus what is not hurtful to do or say to someone. So we learn these rules. And when we don't abide by the rules, when we do something that's wrong, that's hurtful, we feel guilt. So if we know that maybe we were angry and we said something that we shouldn't have that really hurt someone's feelings, we might feel guilty for that. There are millions of reasons why we could possibly feel guilt. We could feel guilt for, taking money, for stealing, for cheating. We could feel guilt for, especially if we're codependent and we're that people pleaser, they feel guilt all the time, people that suffer from those two things, because it's the letting down of someone. So if you're dealing with someone who's a narcissist, who's manipulative, you're gonna feel guilt very, very often, because that is just the drink of choice, like I like to say, or the number one tactic that they often like to use is to get what they want out of a person, is to make them feel guilty, is to put that guilt on them or that guilt trip in order for you to kind of be bendable and essentially give them what they want. So we can either feel guilt by ourselves. So if we did something wrong and we hurt someone, we could sit in a space of guilt. Or if someone manipulates us to make us feel guilty for the fact that we're either saying no or not giving them what they want, or if we're a codependent or a people pleaser. So guilt is something that you can definitely overcome. So most people, when we do experience guilt, even when we do something that's really wrong and really hurtful, we, number one, have to own what we did. So we have to sit in that space and take responsibility for the fact that we said something that was hurtful, that we did something that was hurtful. Until you own it, you can't ever really heal it. So once we own it and we sit in that space and we have empathy for someone else and we can see how our behavior affected someone else, and that especially someone that we love and care about, and we don't want to do that. So we can feel that guilt, but what we do is we always work through that feeling by saying, you know what, I'm human, I did something wrong, I own my part. I'm gonna raise my hand and say, I said something I should have, I did something I should have, and I'm gonna own it and sit in a space. I'm so sorry that I did that. We become apologetic, and then we kind of let it go. We forgive ourselves for what we did, and we allow ourselves to move through that experience. Where sometimes people will stay stuck in guilt, especially when they did something wrong, is when they don't wanna own it. So the only example that I can come up with is, say for example, someone cheats on someone else, they'll feel guilt for it, and instead of owning it, maybe what they do is project onto the person that they cheated on, saying, well, you're the reason why I did this, and I did this because of this, and you said this, and that caused me to cheat, or whatever it was, instead of sitting in the space that they need to take responsibility for their own actions and then understand how their actions affected someone else. So when we're suppressing our guilt, we're not taking responsibility for it, and we're not sitting in a space for someone else and owning what we did and apologizing for what we did, so we can then move on from the experience. So whereas guilt says, I did something wrong, shame goes much, much deeper. Shame says, I am wrong. I am bad. I am defective. I am flawed. So a lot of the feelings that come up when we feel shame is, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm bad. I'm not okay. I'm flawed. I'm not perfect. It's that that wound inside of us that says we're not good enough. Now, the problem with shame is that it's a core wound within inside of you, and because of that core wound that's sitting there, that causes so many problems. That causes depression, that causes anxiety, that causes low self-esteem, that causes low confidence, low self-worth, self-value, that causes someone to not be able to motivate themselves, to fill themselves up inside. So really, shame is the root of a lot of these either mental disorders, whether you're dealing with, an eating disorder or a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction. All of that at its core is the I'm not enough story. And the I'm not enough story sits under that shame umbrella. So when we feel shame, it's I'm not okay, I'm not good, I'm bad, I'm flawed, I'm not perfect. And it's those stories that we're saying to ourselves over and over again. We may not actually be saying those sentences, those words, but the self-talk that you have, basically that negative self-talk, the underlining, voice that's under that negative self-talk is that shame, is that I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm flawed. It's all of that whispering in the background. So now the big question is, where does shame come from? So shame comes from your inner subconscious beliefs that you have about yourself. Now, how are our subconscious beliefs formed? They're formed in childhood. So when we're growing up, or even when we're babies, we feel and experience shame. So when a baby is crying in a crib and no one goes to console that baby is feeling on some level shame. So when we're a child and we need mom and dad's attention and they completely ignore us, we then will feel shame. We'll feel like something's wrong with us because why isn't mom looking at me? Why isn't dad paying attention? Why didn't mom do this? Why didn't dad do this? Why didn't grandma do that? So all of these things, we start to build a shame muscle, unfortunately, or a shame program inside of ourselves. When we're told, you shouldn't act that way, don't cry, you're acting like a baby. When all of these things are said to us that devalue what we're feeling, when we don't get the validation from the people that we love, the people that are supposed to be there to protect us and love us unconditionally, when we don't get that validation that what we're feeling is okay, and we're made to feel like what we're feeling is wrong, or that it's inappropriate, or that it's not right, or that I'm a baby for feeling that way, when we're scolded in that way and we're made to feel shameful for what we're feeling, that builds that shame program. That begins that story of I'm not enough. So when we needed something from mom and dad and they didn't give it to us, as a child, we don't have logic. We don't know logically why mom's not doing this, or why dad is ignoring me because he has to do 5 different things, or because he has to go to work, or he needed to answer the phone because the phone was ringing. We didn't logically know these things. We didn't know that maybe mom's behaving the way she is because she's emotionally abusive, or she's a narcissist, or that mom and dad are parenting me the way that their parents parented them, and they're not consciously and mindfully being aware of what they're saying and what they're doing to me. So when we're kids, we don't have that ability to think logically like that. So when we don't get something that we really needed from our parents, we automatically go to, it must be me, I must be the problem. So if dad leaves and dad abandons you, it's because of you. That is going to be your abandonment, subconscious shame that you carry around with you because you didn't logically know what was actually going on, in this situation in your family. Now, most people will come to me and say, well, my parents weren't bad parents. They were very loving. And you don't have to have people surrounding you as a child that were extremely abusive. It's just about being mindful of your actions and mindful of what you're saying. So everyone's intentions, most people's intentions are good. There's not true neglect in families, but because parents aren't a little bit more mindful of what they're doing and what they're saying to their children, and they're not aware of how these things are formed within a child, they just kind of go off of autopilot and just start parenting either the way that they were parented, or they just unfortunately allow life to kind of take over, and they're not more mindful of what each child needs from them. Now, since we as children did not have logic to be able to work through these feelings that we were feeling, something that I actually find kind of amusing is that oftentimes we as adults don't even use our own logic when we're self-parenting ourselves. So if an adult can't logically look at a situation and be able to rationalize it to kind of help yourself through those hurt feelings or help yourself through an emotion or feeling that you're having, how on earth can a child do it? So really what we're trying to do is teach ourselves how to self-soothe and how to feel our feelings and our emotions, because that's what makes us human. We're going to feel stuff, but learning how to work through them by using that logical mind, by saying, okay, this is how I feel, and now what am I going to do about it? And okay, this is how I'm feeling, but what's really going on in this situation that I'm not seeing because my emotions are so involved in this? So how do we begin to heal shame? So one of the first things that has to be done in order to heal shame is you have to practice self-awareness. So you have to know your I'm not enough story. You have to know what is that story, where are the wounds that are surrounding that story that you tell yourself. And if you don't know your I'm not enough story, you can just honestly ask yourself, hey, why do I think I'm not enough? And what I always say to people is you have to get to know yourself. You have to be able to have inner dialogue with yourself. You have to be able to be your own coach and your own therapist and your own motivational, coach or whatever. You have to be able to be your own best friend, and you have to be able to have that conversation inside of yourself and say, okay, why do I feel like I can't go after this job? Why do I feel like I can't meet this great person? And that I'm not enough story is going to come up, and you need to be really inquisitive with that story. Sit down with that I'm not enough that's coming up and welcome it and have a conversation with it and ask it, why do you feel that way? That's a great question to not only ask other people, but to ask yourself, why do you feel that way? And when you ask yourself that, something is going to come to the surface. So when you practice self-awareness, what you're trying to do is get to the root of what's causing you to feel that shame. In order to heal shame, in order to heal your wounds, you have to know where they are, you have to know what they look like, and you have to know what are the things that trigger you in life. This is where you're really getting to know yourself. Now, the next thing is you have to have compassion for yourself. So when you're sitting down with yourself, you're having these conversations, when you're becoming inquisitive with yourself, when you're hearing that negative self-talk take over and you're saying to yourself, all right, what's going on here? Where's this negative self-talk coming from? Why do I feel this way? And really digging in and loving yourself, that's self-love. Being inquisitive to why you feel what you feel, that is self-care and self-love right there. But when all of that comes to the surface, you have to have compassion for what you're feeling. You have to validate what you're feeling, and you have to have compassion for what it is that you're feeling and the emotions that are coming to the surface. You cannot judge what you're feeling whatsoever. Just remember, when shame comes up, shame is judgment. That is judging that you're not enough, that you're not good, that you're not going to be able to get what you want. All of that is old programming. And so when that comes up, you have to be aware of it, and you have to say, you know what? Okay, this is how I feel. I can feel this way. That's totally fine. Now what am I going to do about it? So this is where we start using that logical mind. This is when we start self-parenting. So when we're self-parenting, we're not emotionally knee-deep in this negative self-talk that we're having, in this shame story, in this I'm not enough story that's going on. We are the adult, we are the parent, and we're taking care of that child, which is your inner child. So that inner child is the one that's telling you all of these stories. That's the one that's got all the wounds, or your wounded self, and all the stories that are coming to the surface. So if you're the parent taking care of a child and this is what this child is telling you, would you judge this child? No, you would validate their feelings, and you wouldn't be emotionally in the story because you're the outsider looking in, and you would allow yourself to say, okay, I understand why you're feeling this way. You have every right to feel this way. And now let's take a step back and look at what it is that's really going on here. And this is where we start using our logical mind, and we start seeing things for what they really are versus seeing them through the lens of just our emotions. So the biggest thing that's going to help heal guilt and shame really is you being able to parent yourself and having that self-awareness to say, you know what? I want to be inquisitive as to where this I'm not enough story is coming from, because the I'm not enough, it controls every single aspect of your life. It controls whether or not you go after the career or job that you want. It controls the friends and the quality of those friendships that you have. It controls, you know, the kind of partner that you're gonna attract. It controls how much money you're gonna make. It controls whether or not you go to the gym when you wanna go to the gym. It controls what you eat. It controls all of that. So that I'm not enough story, again, is under that shame umbrella. So when we start tackling, okay, why do I feel like I'm flawed? Where does that come from? Why am I telling myself I'm not perfect? Why do I, you know, why am I making myself feel like there's something wrong with me for feeling the way I'm feeling, or for wanting something that I want in my life? Why can't that happen for me? When you start loving yourself and sticking up for yourself, you know, life really changes, because that inner child that needs you to stand up, you know, stand up for yourself. There's a quote by Les Brown, and I love, love, love this quote. And he says, you have to learn how to stand up for yourself inside of yourself. And it's just such a brilliant, brilliant quote. And I just absolutely love it, because it's so, so true. When you stand up for yourself inside of yourself, that's when you can stand up for yourself in life. That's when you can love yourself and motivate yourself in life. That's when you start achieving the things that you want to achieve and have the things that you want to have in life, is when you start taking control of what's going on in here and saying, okay, I'm the adult, I'm the parent. And anytime that negative ego wants to take over and start dragging me down this spiral, I'm gonna take control of it. I'm gonna find out why it's saying what it's saying to me, and I'm gonna logically break this down. That way I'm supporting myself and I'm loving myself, and I'm not believing that negative story, because that negative story is just old programming that's sitting in the back of my mind from when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and it's not serving me. It's not serving me, and it's not even actually true. So I hope that this has helped you guys out there understand the difference between guilt and shame, and not only understand the difference between it, but I hope that this video helped you gain some insight and some tips on things that you can start doing to really heal those parts of yourself. So if you have liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next week.